Hello again, precious friends. Thanks for joining the Carnivore Hippie. You know, many of us who have issues with food, whether it's cravings or binging or food intolerances or whatever, we tend to go around saying, I can't eat that, or it's not allowed on my diet. And for many of us, it feels like some outside entity standing there waggling its finger and saying, no, no. Or some inner parent or food cop with a scowl and a disapproving attitude, condemnation. And not only is it wrong to eat the food, it's also wrong to even want it. It seems like an intrinsic part of the shame, tough love dynamic, and we can say we'll stop shaming ourselves and we can promise not to tough love ourselves, but the food cop is still there in the background saying, no, you're not allowed to eat that. Well, my question is, says who? Says me? And if it is me, what stops me from saying I can? I know that it feels like giving up. It feels like saying to myself, if I can have the food, doesn't that just mean I'll continue to eat it and continue to perpetuate my problem? But what if that's not what it means? With the help of a coach, I experienced a very powerful change in thinking. I began to explore the difference between I can't and I don't. Now, in terms of pure behavior outcomes, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference, at least on the surface. I mean, if the end result is that I don't eat things that aren't good for me, why does that matter? Well, I believe it matters because I believe there's a significant change in long-term outcome. There has been for me, and I know there has been for others that I know, when you change this way of thinking. What would you say if I told you you could feel absolutely free to eat anything you wanted and still progress towards your health goals? And no, I'm not about to say I can eat anything I want. I just never want anything that's bad for me. I just want to slap people who say that, honestly, because frankly, I think they're just really bragging, and I generally don't believe it's true. So, what's the difference? When I was just coming from a mindset of I can't eat that, it kind of felt like one of those prison shackles connected to a great big iron ball that you used to see in, old movies or old cartoons. It felt like something I needed to resist, to rebel against. And, I didn't even consciously realize it. There was this total disconnect between what I wanted to do and what was good for me to do. And I really, really wanted to do what was good for me, but I just didn't want to. And I felt really bad about it. I was convinced that my desire to eat the bad food was the problem. And until my desire was gone, I wouldn't be able to be successful without the discipline of restriction. I mean, diet guru after diet guru that I had experienced told me that if I just restricted long enough, my desire or my taste for this unhealthy sort of food would go away. Well, that did not happen. Let me be honest. And I had no concept that it might be the restriction itself that was actually driving a lot of my craving behaviors. So, once again, as we've discussed, the primitive mind is like a tantruming toddler or a rebellious teenager. And anybody who has ever had to take charge of a toddler or a teenager knows that the quickest way to have a conflict is to tell the child they can't do something. I mean, it doesn't even, frankly, have to be something that the child particularly wants to do. But the quickest way to make them want to do it is to tell them they can't. And the harder you try to forbid it, the harder they're going to try to figure out a way to do it. As it turns out, this is completely normal for human beings. I mean, let's face it, there's some things that need to be restricted. I mean, we're not going to sit here and pretend it's not going to be necessary to restrict behaviors like, violence or theft or lying or stuff like that, okay? But if it's normal for human beings to push against limitations, against restrictions, and in the broad scheme of things, that's actually a good thing, then in many instances, might it not be more effective to find a way to achieve the same thing without creating the restriction? Well, how did I achieve it? You're probably already going to guess. I was going to say training. But training how? Training what? Training your brain. Your primitive brain as well as your higher brain. Cravings are chemical signals to repeat a particular behavior because the primitive brain perceives it to be of benefit. This explains why most human beings are hardwired to like carbs. It's a survival benefit. I'm not going to go into the theory here because I've already explained my understanding of it in a previous video, which I'll link in the description box. But the more often we respond positively to a craving, the stronger the cravings become. And as we've discussed before, resisting the craving or telling it no just makes things worse. The more we say no, the more likely it is that we're going to give in eventually, and the longer we have held out, the bigger the binge is likely to be. So, we're going to stop saying no to our cravings. I know, scary, right? So, but what we're going to do instead is we're going to tell our tantruming toddler, you can't have that right now, but you can have it tomorrow. Optimally, it should be at least 24 hours between the time the craving hits and the time you permit yourself to have the food, okay? I once waited 3 weeks to indulge in a craving for a pear because I was on a no sugar challenge, and that included fructose and fruit. But my coach basically said, okay, fine. Just plan on having it the day after the challenge is over, and it'll be fine. And you know what? It was. I really enjoyed that pear. But I didn't go on and eat 5 or 6 pears. I didn't go on and have a week-long fruit binge. I ate the pear, and I loved it, and it was okay. And I really, really wanted the pear, but I was able to last to the end of the no sugar challenge. So, and I was new to this behavior, to this training at the time. So, if I could do it at that point, I think pretty much anybody can do it if they really want to. But the point is, you plan what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, how much of it you're going to eat, even if it's like all I want in that one sitting, that's absolutely fine. And when the eating interval will end. Okay, and then you stick to the plan. So for instance, let's pretend a craving for a chocolate bar hits, right? And instead of getting up and going to the vending machine or digging out the bag of chocolate bars or whatever it is, you tell the tantruming toddler, the craving, you can have some chocolate tomorrow after lunch, after you've eaten your lunch. Okay? And very often just knowing that, okay, it's going to happen is enough to just take the immediate crazy edge off the craving. Okay, we're going to have it, just not right now. We're going to have it tomorrow after lunch. Okay, so the next day, after lunch, we're going to sit down and we're going to eat the chocolate. And we're going to give ourselves absolute freedom and permission to look forward to the chocolate, to anticipate the chocolate, and to enjoy the heck out of the chocolate while we're eating it, to luxuriate in it if we want to. And we're going to give ourselves permission to eat every single bite that we have planned on eating. Even if you decided, I'm going to eat chocolate until I can't eat another bite of chocolate. But once we've eaten the amount of chocolate that we've decided to eat, and lunch is over, and we've gotten up and began to go about the rest of our day, the chocolate interval is over. And if we have any leftover chocolate, we're going to give it away or otherwise dispose of it or whatever. Me personally, at that point in my life, I probably wouldn't have been able to just put it away and not eat it. If you can do that, great. I would have had to give it away or throw it away or get rid of it somehow and not have it at access. But whatever you need to do, that's what you do. And you know what? Strangely enough, when I do this, sometimes I get to the point where I've given myself permission to have the food and I find I'm not really interested in it anymore. I mean, I can still have it if I want it, but if I don't want it, what's the point? Especially if it's, kind of naughtiness that I know I may end up paying a physical price for. But, this exercise, along with the self-awareness exercise from the previous video, has really been absolutely transformative for me. I still give in to cravings sometimes, but they rarely explode into outright binges anymore, like they used to frequently. 90% of the time, I'm eating the food that I know to be good for me, and I'm absolutely satisfied with that. And it's not because I'm not allowed to eat any junk. It's because I've gotten to the point where I'm capable of choosing not to. I still like the food. I still even want the food. I still think it's very pleasant to eat, but I can say, no, the pleasure's not worth it. Or I can say to myself, no, I have another plan that's more important than the pleasure of eating it, because I don't need that pleasure as my only source of dopamine hit. I have so many other sources of pleasure and dopamine now that it's easy. Most of the time, not always, but it's easy to trade the dopamine hit from the food for a dopamine hit from something else, or even to forego the dopamine hit from the food altogether. Like I said, anybody who saw my video from last Christmas or last January, first week of January, knows that, I can still slip up and make poor decisions. But when I was ready to come out of it, I came out of it. I came right out of it, honestly. And it was great. And it was very empowering to know that I could slip up like that and fall off the wagon, as I like to say, fall off the wagon, roll down the hill, and land in the mud puddle. But yeah, I decided I didn't need to feel bad about it, and I got up, and it was absolutely freeing. And I went on to get back on my eating plan pretty much without a hitch at that point. Once I really was relaxed enough and rested enough and out of the stress enough to figure out actually realistically why I was doing it. But the other thing that's been great about it is I no longer have any fear of social awkwardness when I'm not eating the things that everybody else is eating. I can say with strength and pride, no thank you, instead of, oh, I can't eat that. You know, I believe when we say those things, I can't eat that, or it's not allowed on my diet, we're generally expressing some sort of negativity, like, oh, poor expression, a hangdog expression, or a poor me kind of an aspect. And I think that kind of triggers the people who care about us to pressure us to eat the food that we say we can't eat, but that we so obviously want to eat. They're actually trying to help us. They're actually driven to try to make us feel better, and they're inadvertently sabotaging us. So when you get to a point where you can say, no thanks, and it's fine, you may find that the people who are, come on, pressuring you just to have a little bit, you might find that the majority of people who were doing that aren't doing that because they want to sabotage you or because they are uncomfortable because you're not eating. I think you'll find that the majority of those people will just accept that you don't want to eat it because you're obviously fine. You're not giving any evidence that you're unhappy or sad or otherwise, bummed out that you can't have it. So they won't feel any pressure to encourage you to eat it. At least that's what I found in my experience. So this way of thinking has been so absolutely liberating for me. It's even hard for me to describe. Just the knowledge that I can have something if I really want it, is often enough to give me the power to say no thanks. Not right now. Another time maybe. And just that in and of itself has gone so far towards helping me achieve going forward on my health goals. I haven't achieved all my health goals. I still have some weight I would like to see gone, some fat that I would like to see gone. And frankly, I've been kind of stalled out for a little while. But my life is so much more positive and so much better than it was. I've decided I'm not going to focus on that right now. I think I've said this before. I'm just enjoying living life without depression and living life, being pretty much able to do whatever I want, being able to be physical, being able to be on my feet for hours at a time without being in pain, having better sleep, having just a generally better attitude about life, being able to wake up in the morning and look forward to a day. Now, I don't wake up and look forward to every day, but I look forward to waking up every morning, whereas I remember a time not that long ago when I would literally lay down every night and pray to die in my sleep. And I cannot tell you what a relief and what a joy and how satisfying it is that that is gone. So, my precious friends, it can be done. You can experience this freedom. It is not easy. And as we talked about in the last video, in the self-awareness video, it is uncomfortable. But I spent so many years being so uncomfortable and so unhappy that the type of discomfort that I have to deal with in learning to overcome my food triggers has been almost nothing compared to the suffering, the emotional suffering that I went through and the physical suffering that I went through. So you have to, life is hard. You have to pick your heart. And I know there are some people who are really, really, really offended by that because they're like, I didn't get to pick this. Well, fine. Life is hard. You can choose to make it harder if you want to. You can choose to make it unnecessarily hard if you want to. Or you can choose to invest in some difficulty that has been shown to make things better in the long run. And that's what I did. And I'm so glad I have. Precious friends, I hope you can find the strength within you to do this. Find someone you can talk to. Find someone who will help you. Hit me in the comments. Email me. Get in community. There's just nothing else like being in community with like-minded people who understand what you're going through or are at least sympathetic. So that's all today, precious friends. I love you all. I wish you peace, love, and meat, and we will talk again soon. Bye.